Continuing with Surah al-Tīn, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, بعد أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والتين والزيتون وطور سينين وهذا البلد الأمين لقد خلقنا الإنسان في أحسن تقويم. And we have created the human being in the best of fashions. So we're not done with this ayah. Last time we spoke about the logical proofs and different kinds of proofs for the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just so that we have some kind of an idea. But out of those proofs, what I really wanted to highlight was you can prove the existence of God just based on the uniqueness of the human being. Like human consciousness that's unique to human beings, language that's unique to human beings, morality that's unique to human beings, and those kinds of things. There's another element which I want to talk about, which kind of combines all these things in a way. But before we do that, I thought it would be also very interesting that we talk about the human anatomy according to the Quran. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mean when He speaks about the human being and his capabilities and capacities and body parts, let's say? So we all know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us from clay, right? So earth, water, maybe, because it's surmised that it's water, because not just earth from all over the place, different kind of earth, light colored earth, dark colored earth, red earth, black earth, and some hadith say this is how we get our skin colors, wallahu alam. And the Quran says, وَبَدَأَ خَلْقَ الْإِنسَانِ مِنْ طِينٍ. The creation of human being began with clay. What do you need to make clay? You need earth and you need water. So you can surmise, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also in the Quran says, everything that is created is created from water. So we know that there's earth and there's water. Okay, great. So those are the earthly elements that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created Adam alayhi salam with, the first creation. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us in the Quran, فَنَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي, speaking about Adam alayhi salam, that we blew our ruh inside Adam. Okay, so there is a non-earthly component. So there's earthly components and there's a non-earthly component. We'll talk about ruh in a second as well. So when we think about the body of the human being, it's composed of this earthly component and a non-earthly, spiritual, heavenly component from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you think of the material body, the Quran pretty much doesn't really mention. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks to us in terms of our body, which is a spiritual body. As if the body that we have, it has its material aspect and a spiritual aspect. What is this spiritual aspect? So ruh is ruh. Okay, we'll talk about ruh in a second. The body is in the Quran, the spiritual body, not the material body necessarily, okay? And it gets intermingled in the Quran. It's called Nafs. So there's ruh and there's Nafs. Ruh, in English, we can translate that in spirit. What is ruh? Ruh is used multiple different ways and multiple different meanings in the Quran. And nobody has a clear answer on this anyway. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us that if they ask you about ruh, قُلِ الرُّوحُ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي, I'll tell them that ruh is from the affairs of Allah, as if it's a secret from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, the ruh is also used for Jibreel alayhi salam. It is also used as a strength or help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's also ruh. Isa alayhi salam is called ruh. And then there's the nafs. What is the nafs? And the common English translation is we say soul. When we say soul, when we use it in our language, we mean either ruh or the body part, the spiritual body. But really a better translation would be the spiritual body, not the spirit side. Soul. So nafs. So nafs, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us a lot of different components of the nafs. For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses sadr and qalb in the Quran, that we have a sadr, commonly translated as chest. But is it really the physical chest? No, it's the spiritual chest, sadr. Okay. For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَمَنْ يُرِدِ اللَّهُ أَنْ يَهْدِيهِ يَشْرَحْ صَدْرَهُ إِلَى الْإِسْلَامِ. When Allah wills to guide someone, He expands his chest towards submission, towards Islam. Okay? So the chest can expand and the chest can contract. In the same ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, whenever Allah wills to misguide someone because of their own deeds, يَجْعَلْ صَدْرَهُ ضَيِّقًا حَرَجًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala constricts their chest. So we know that we have a sadr, which is a spiritual sadr, which constricts and expands. For example, أَلَمْ نَشْرَحْ لَكَ صَدْرَكَ. Didn't we expand your chest? So that's the expansion of the chest. Then there's qalb, and it's used in multiple places. There's different kinds of qalb. Qalb means heart. For example, أَلَا بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تَطْمَئِنُّ الْقُلُوبِ. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, isn't it true that through the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the qulub, the hearts, they find tranquility. So the heart can find tranquility. The hearts can also find salama. For example, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, those will be successful who come to Allah with qalbun salim, with a sound heart, with a salim heart. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us senses, spiritual senses, okay? Not physical senses, spiritual senses. What are they? For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah al-Mulk, for example, قُلْ هُوَ الَّذِي أَنْشَأَكُمْ وَجَعَلَ لَكُمُ السَّمْعَ وَالْأَبْصَارَ وَالْأَفْئِدَةَ. Okay? That He gave you sama, hearing, so we can have physical hearing, but here the hearing is a little bit deeper. Hearing what? Hearing in getting knowledge and information from outside and consuming it spiritually. Sama and absar. Absar, you can say eyesight, but it's really not eyesight. It's really insight. You see from your heart. You see from your spiritual body. Absar. Wal af'ida. What is af'ida? Fu'ad, which is the singular of af'ida, is a heart, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the word qalb for heart. So what is fu'ad? Qalb means something that turns. Fu'ad means something that it feels. There's different ways to interpret it. Okay, so there's qalb and there's fu'ad. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, coming to the mind part, the spiritual mind, we have aql. We have aql, typically means intellect. Then we have, the Quran says, for example, ulul albab, those with lubb. Those with lubb. What is lubb? Lubb is also intellect. It's as if aql is intellect in general, but lubb is higher intellect. It's higher intellect, higher thinking. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us, just like our physical body has desires, our spiritual body also has desires, which inshallah not tonight. I think it's already too long. We'll talk about it maybe next time. Our physical body has desires. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls that hawa. Hawa. For example, desire for food, desire for intimacy, desire for wanting things and all of that. Okay. So last couple of things I will say is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says the nafs فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave our nafs the ilham of rebellion, fujur, okay, to breaking the bounds, of basically desecrating our spiritual holiness, fujur, wa taqwaha, and its protection, so that protecting our nafs from external desires and elements and evil and shar and all of that. So those are the things that we have, and then our nafs requires tazkiyah. So the qalb, for example, it requires salama, right? Then we also learn in, for example, in قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا, the one who will be successful, who? Speaking about the nafs. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala there is speaking about the nafs. The one who does the tazkiyah to nafs, cleanses their nafs from these desires, from these influences, is going to be the one who is successful. And then we also learn, for example, in Surah Al-Fajr, Ya ayyuhatuhan nafsul mutma'inna, the nafs that has tama'nina, tranquility. Well, I just wanted to give you this vocabulary a little bit because this is going to be kind of important in understanding Surah Tīn, where we understand that we have the physical material body and where we have the spiritual body. Spiritual body has all of these body parts. There's the ruh, there's the nafs. The nafs has these abilities and capabilities and body parts, and it requires that we use these abilities and body parts to do something with. What are we supposed to do? We can either feed our nafs with desires of this earth, or we can feed our nafs with the food from the heaven, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? So that essentially is this surah's whole central theme. The whole central theme. What are those heavenly inputs that we need for the abilities? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said what? وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ. What is that taqweem? So it is all of these body parts. Then there's another part, which is going to be the topic maybe inshallah next time. It's fitrah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فِطْرَةَ اللَّهِ الَّتِي فَطَرَ النَّاسَ عَلَيْهَا. There is a fitrah of Allah that all human beings are created upon. Okay? And that aligns to our topic today and the last time where we talked about the unique human capabilities that we have that are in no other animals. Inshallah, we'll talk about that next time. Barakallahu feekum. Okay?